Okay, this is the Studio Art Pre-College Intensive at SMFA at Tufts. Thank you for joining us for our webinar, our informational webinar. Um, During this webinar, I am going to tell you a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the program, as well as some of the curricular goals of the program. And then if you wouldn't mind holding your questions until the end, I can take those after I've finished going through my presentation. This is unfortunately a one-way, at least speaking-wise, webinar. So the only way I will know if you have a question is for you to type it to me in the panel. I assume it's on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can type that to me at the end of my presentation. So, without further ado, my name is Wilkie Cook. I'm the Director of Continuing Education at SMFA at Tufts, and as well as pre-college and the summer programs here at SMFA. We are really excited about the pre-college studio art program this summer. We are welcoming students from around the world who will be part of the program. This webinar will be about 15 minutes, and the purpose of this, again, is just to go over some high-level information, to present some details about the schedule, answer some of your questions about what your students' experience will be like, and anything else I can help you with. We are being recorded, and the entire presentation will be saved online for future reference in case you have to jump out at some point. So, the nuts and bolts of the pre-college program. As I mentioned, this is we are welcoming students from around the world. We have a residential or a commuter option for the program. The residential piece will be housed or hosted on the Medford campus at Tufts, and the classes will take place at the Fenway campus. The SMFA is located at 230 Fenway in Boston, and there will be a shuttle between Medford and SMFA each morning after breakfast and each evening after classes end to get students home before dinner. There's also a commuter option for those of you who are local who wish to be dropped off and go home and sleep in your own beds. And that is, you would be dropped off at SMFA at 9:30 in the morning and picked up by 5:30 each evening. For those students who are part of the residential program, there are weekend activities on the Medford campus. There's a large summer program happening on that campus, and so there will be evening activities and weekend activities planned that you can sign up for. The Medford students, the residential students, will have their breakfasts and their dinners on the Medford campus, and everyone will have lunch and snacks at the SMFA during the day when they're taking their classes. So the program is really focused on foundations, the 4 foundations of drawing and painting, 3D and sculpture, digital media, and critical studies. So the day will revolve around classes in those 4 areas. Classes are an hour and 45 minutes long, so students will get to dig in deeply and enjoy some really interesting projects. Highlights of the program include a focus on portfolio building. There will be an opportunity to meet with Tufts admissions officers who will be in the building, and they will be in the studios with the students to talk about how to put together a portfolio. There will also be the instructors and everyone all the teachers in the classrooms will be available for students to talk about their portfolios. One thing that is very particular to the SMFA at Tufts is our focus on interdisciplinary instruction, which is really that that art is meant to be a sort of a fluid dialogue between different mediums. We offer students the opportunity to paint, combine painting and digital media, 3D and 2D pieces, and so that practice is something that is deeply embedded in the education of the SMFA. So the instruction that we give in our foundations will be focused on that emphasis. We expect that the part of the impetus for your student wanting to join this program is to live and practice in a community of working artists. So that's an exciting aspect of this. I know that from the classroom assistants to the instructors to everyone in the building is there because they love art and they're interested in art, and so it's a really rich environment to be a part of. Fourth, to help your student build confidence discussing their work and giving constructive criticism to others' work. That is a big part of being an artist, and it is inspiring from my perspective to have watched some of these students stand up and present their work and give comments on their colleagues' works. It's great. So one of the other aspects of the program is that we will visit local art institutions. We are located about 100 yards from the front of the Isabella Stewart Gardner and maybe 150 yards from the Museum of Fine Arts, and a short taxi ride away from the ICA, all of which, depending on the program and the curriculum, we will visit on our Thursday, which is our field trip day. Then the last Friday of the program, there is a final exhibition where the students will have focused on one piece of art, one project during their last week to exhibit, and parents are invited to come and participate. Okay, let's see. Hold on. So as part of the way we approach art at SMFA is through some overarching questions that will be threaded through all of their discussions, all of their classes, and will help really, I think, help the students focus on what they want to get out of their art. And some of those questions are, how do artists examine, critique, and better the world around us? How can art transcend medium by combining and transforming materials in order to communicate something new and meaningful? Again, you hear the interdisciplinary theme embedded in that question. What ideas are important to me and how can I best communicate them? That's really getting at thinking big for some of these students. So we really invite your students to come and explore and experiment with the different mediums that they will be working with in our studios this summer. So the foundation classes, as I mentioned, drawing and painting, sculpture, 3D, digital media, and critical studies. So the instruction and exploration with a range of materials. They will focus on technical skill building, on final projects, and the portfolio development that I mentioned. In the drawing and painting class, there will be some figure drawing, some color theory. There'll be some instruction around using different mediums such as charcoal and graphite, acrylics. Past projects have included observational painting, thinking outside the canvas, portrait painting, and abstraction. In the 3D and sculpture foundation class, they will do a series of projects using found objects, wire, tape. One of the projects they did last year was a body extension, which was to imagine something that you could build off of your body. It was quite inspiring to see, and miniature rooms. And then, hang on here. And digital media. Digital media is something that this age group has a lot of experience in, although they may not have any technical skills with the actual tools. They will practice some hand-drawn and digital animation, stop motion animation, actual video, and the past projects have included some green screen work, claymation, and pegboard animation. And I have a short video that I'm going to play next that was completed in last year's digital media class. It's just sort of a fun little project they did. Here, hang on one second. Hang on. Oops. Nope. Going back to this. Here you go. Okay. So that gives you an idea of the kind of things they can do. The critical studies class is a way of making connections between what they're making in their studios and art out in the world. Last year's pre-college program visited the ICA, and they did a studio visit at the ICA, and then they also visited the MFA. We expect or anticipate there will be some visiting artist talks during the lunch hour as part of the critical studies curriculum, and they'll do some analysis and critiques. So we're very excited about these thundations of the program this summer. The daily schedule. I mentioned that if they're residential students, they'll be living on the Medford campus and commuting to SMFA in the morning. They'll have breakfast in Medford between 7:30 and 8:30 roughly, and then they will begin their classes. Then they'll be shuttled to the SMFA where they will start their classes at 9:30. And then they'll move from their first foundation class to their second foundation class. Then they'll have lunch. Open Studio is the reference to Open Studio here is that all the students will have access to their own studio space. It'll be in a shared area, but it will allow them to work on their own projects, however, in whatever medium they select. And then that we find that's a good time for them to do that because at lunch they usually eat pretty quickly. We may also use the lunchtime for some visiting artist talks, depending on scheduling. And then the afternoon, I see I have the time wrong there. It should be 1:55 to 3:40 would be critical studies, followed up with their last foundation class from 3:45 to 5:30, at which point they will take a shuttle back to Medford where they will have dinner and an evening activity if they choose to participate in one. And that's the schedule for 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Thursdays, there's a little bit of a different schedule, and that is the morning they have a devoted period where they can be in their studio exploring some of the work that they've been practicing in their foundation classes, and meeting with admissions folks, meeting with some of the instructors and classroom assistants, and then they'll have lunch, and then they'll go on a field trip with the instructors. That is the schedule. Here's another video from last that focuses on last summer's program. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what I've just been talking about. Hold on one second. Oh, no. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So I hope that gives you a pretty good idea of the program and what your student can expect. I would love to take any of your questions now if you've got them. Um, I'm going to flip the screen here to make sure I'm not missing something. Uh, let's see. Okay, there it is. So if you have a question, please feel free to type them to me now. I have one question here, which is whether, will my child have a roommate? Yes. Tufts is, as you can imagine, quite experienced at housing since they welcome students there on their campus in their dorms. And during the registration process, you will fill out forms for your child that will help us identify what kind of roommate would be best suited for your child. And I have added some other questions here in case you want to go over some of these. These might be also ones you're thinking of. Do commuter students need to bring their own lunch? No, all students will have lunch and snacks provided for them at the SMFA. What if my child has a food allergy? Food allergies, we can accommodate most food allergies. Again, just the more information we have, the better we can make arrangements. So again, that can be included in the registration process, and I mean in the forms you fill out once you've applied. Regarding photography, we don't actually teach photography in this program, but we practice skills that can be applied in photography in that medium. Regarding materials, yes, artists use a lot of materials, and ours will as well, as I'm sure you could see in those videos. So the materials, there is a material fee included in the price of the program, and we will provide each student with a kit of basic materials. Then there will be shared materials such as larger things of paint. Then students will be asked, certainly for the 3D and sculpture piece, to bring in some found objects, found materials. And I'm not sure, I guess depending on the project that they envision, they will scope out the materials that they need for that. Our instructors can also give them guidance on where to find certain types of materials. But that's how that works. There are also some materials in the building. And then what happens if my child gets hurt? Yes, very good question. We have an EMT on site. We have Tufts security at the front desk who are trained in emergency protocols. We are in the Longwood neighborhood of Boston. For those of you who are not familiar with Boston, we are nearby some of the greatest hospitals in the country. And although we hope and will do everything in our sort of possession to keep your children safe, things do happen, and we will use all safety precautions necessary in our building and in our space. Where do you go on field trips? As I mentioned, we go to ICA, the MFA, and the Isabella Stewart Gardner. Can my student meet with someone from the Tufts admissions? Yes, absolutely. Admissions officers are available to meet individually. They'll also do a presentation, and your student can feel free to connect with them as little or as much as they desire. Can parents come and visit the program? On the last day of the program, on Friday, July 26th, parents are invited to come and see the final exhibition, which we very much hope you will come and see. And lastly, do we offer college credit? No, unfortunately, we do not. The program isn't long enough. It would have to be structured differently to offer college credit. So that is all I have. I appreciate your attendance and your willingness to be a part of this presentation. If you have additional questions, please email me. There's plenty of information also on our website that you can access at smfa.tufts.edu/precollege. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see your student in our program this summer.